Hello, welcome along. Here we're talking about Microsoft Groups, and we'll be performing a migration of the email data that exists in Microsoft Groups from one tenant to another using the MigrationWiz tool from BitTitan. So let's have a look at our source tenant. You can see we're inside the active teams and groups inside that Cozy Mouse, the source tenant here. And if I go down a little bit, you'll see we've got one here called sales team at cozymouse.com. It's been used by the sales team for communications. It's like a shared mailbox that they're using, and it is a team as well. But what we're interested in here is the mail data that effectively is that shared mailbox that they've been working with. And if I just quickly show you that, if we've got the Outlook open for one of the users, you can see that's their normal Outlook. And you can see here, go to groups, that's what they would normally be doing. And you can see under the sales team here, there is some mail in here, which is what, as I say, they've been using as their shared mailbox. So we're going to migrate this across to a new sales team inside the Migration Frog tenant, which is our target tenant that we've been using for some of these demonstrations. So what we've done already is we've created that group or team, if you like, inside the Migration Frog tenant. Let me just show you that. So inside the target tenant here, you can see I've got one called Cozy Mouse Sales Team, completely different name for it as well. We've called this one Cozy Mouse Sales at Migration Frog. That's the new address that they're going to have. And if I just bring over what it looks like already with a blank setup, you can see that for our user here, Bob Jones at migrationfrog.com, so in the target tenant, the groups that he's a member of is Cozy Mouse Sales Team. That's newly created as of this morning, as you can see, and it's on this group section here. So we're going to be taking the email data out of the target tenant from the original Cozy Mouse Sales, and it will end up inside this mailbox right here. As I go through this, I'll be referring to the Help Center article. You can see here the group-to-group mailbox, the conversations migration guide, and we go through what needs to be done. So I'm going to take you through the setup, what we need to do on both the source and the target environments in terms of creating that application registration to give the MigrationWiz tool the rights to be able to get in and move the data. And then I'm going to take you through the project creation, and we'll do the migration itself and see that transition across to the target tenant. So to give it those rights in the source, if we look at the preparing a source environment, I'm interested in this item down here, which is the authentication methods we need to apply. And if we go down this a little bit, you'll notice that we're looking for the part where it talks about the Microsoft 365 groups. So what we're looking for here, as you can see here, public folder and 365 groups, there, like so, and we click on groups. And really what we're doing here is just following these steps, creating that application and applying the rights to that application as well. So let me just jump back into the source tenant and I'll show you a walkthrough of how we go ahead and do that. So coming back to our screen, we had the admin center for Cozy Mouse. On the left hand side here, I want to go to identity, which will take us into the Entra ID. And once we're in there, I'm interested in applications here and app registrations. And if I click on all applications, we'll get to see what we have already listed. So I'm going to click new registration and start a new one. I'm going to start off with a name for it. You can put whatever name you would like to put in there. I'm going to call this one just the MigrationWiz Group Migration. Leave all these as default and hit register. And it will give us the first part done. Now we need to go to the authentication tab here. And we need to click on the public flows with a yes, like so, and hit save there. And then we're going to go to API permissions, like that. And we're going to add a permission here. Now we're going to click on the APIs my organization uses, and we're going to start typing. If you put in Office 365 there, you'll see you can get straight to this list, and we're interested in the Exchange Online rights here. And then the delegated permissions, and I want to just go to EWS and on EWS access as user.all and add the permissions there. That will pop into here, in which case I then hit the grant admin consent and hit yes, and that will then change accordingly, as you can see. And then we can go back to our overview, because I'm going to need to grab the client ID and the tenant ID out of this section. And we're going to be using those when we create the project. So it's a good idea to just cut them, so I copy and paste them out now, just drop them into Notepad so you've got them handy for a bit later on. And also note that in that source tenant, we do need that service account. I've got here MigrationWiz at cozymouse.com. That is just a user we'll use from the SaaS side, the MigrationWiz side, to connect into the tenant. So that's just a normal account there, which we'll set up as an admin account so we can have access in there. We do need to turn off the MFA request because when it does actually do the request into the tenant, it can't use MFA for that. So you need to exclude that from your conditional access policies or however you're doing the MFA there. But that is an important step. It does say that in the guide as well, but definitely you want to be doing that MFA turn off. Now I've just gone ahead and done exactly the same thing inside the target tenant, the Migration Frog tenant. As you can see, we've got one for MigrationWiz 365 Groups under the app registrations, and that is done as well. And I've copied out these two items too, so that we are really much now ready to create our project inside the MigrationWiz console. So let's go and do that. So referring back to our help desk article, you can see we've done the source, we've done the destination, and we're now heading down to creating the mailbox migration project, which you can see here, and creating our source and destination endpoints. So let's go into MigrationWiz now, and I have my project listed here, and I'm going to say create project, and I'm going to do a normal mailbox project because we are migrating mail from one group to another. So we'll define it as a mailbox project. We'll give it a project name and a customer. So I've got Cozy Mouse defined already, but we've used it in previous projects. Otherwise you'd hit new and like so, and then put some details in around your customer, which is all it needs. It really is the primary email domain and the company domain. So we'll close that and we'll hit next step, take us into the source settings. So in the source endpoint, I'm going to hit new and we'll give it a name here, calling it Cozy Mouse M365 Groups, and I'll select the endpoint type as Microsoft 365 Groups. Now it's going to require the URL as well as the admin username because groups are predominantly SharePoint based, so we need to know what the top level of the SharePoint is for that tenant. In which case for Cozy Mouse it'll be the cozymouse.sharepoint.com. So whatever you have as your top level SharePoint domain, that's what you need to put in here for the URL. And then of course the admin username that you'd set up before, which is our MigrationWiz service account here, and we say add. And it'll take us into the settings we need for, like we had before, the application ID and the tenant ID for the one we've just created. So we're going to paste those in from Notepad, which I will do here, like so, and then hit next step, take us into the destination. So we're going to do exactly the same thing we just did for the target tenant as well. So once again, new endpoint, and I'll put in the name here as Migration Frog 365 Groups, and once again 365 Groups as our target, and I'll put in the URL and admin username for the target tenant here. So from there we'll hit add, and it'll take us into the same starter page, which I will then put in those two items. Again, we pasted those from the Notepad, which is where we had set up previously. Now let's put those in there, hit next step, and it'll take us through to the request for summary. Now if I hit the go to summary, it will then save all of those items and actually check out that it can log in with those accounts as well as. So you can see that has been able to. So we're going to say save project, and away it goes into the main screen, which you'll remember from previous projects where we set up the items in there. But essentially our project is now configured. We can start to add the different mailboxes that we want to be migrating across. Now if you had a lot of them, you'd probably be doing it with a spreadsheet, like an output to a CSV file, and import that. You can cut and paste the different columns in if you need to in the bulkhead as well. So as I say, if I go to bulkhead, you can see I can import from a CSV, or I can drop all the source and destination and paste them in here. In this particular case, I'm just doing one mailbox, so I can put that in myself just by doing the quick add and key that in. And I'm going to go from that the Cozy Mouse sales team across into the Migration Frog. So I'll just put those items in here. So with those two put in, I'll hit save item and close, and it'll take us to our main project screen, as you can see. Now for licensing, you can use the standard MigrationWiz mailbox license, or you can use a UMB license depending on what you've chosen for your project. In this case, I am going to put a UMB license on there and just apply that. You can see here I can just do that and hit apply. Once it comes up with my license count, there we go. And that will take a minute or so, but it will then apply that license, and we are then good to start migrating that account. So before that comes through though, what we will be doing is the stages of the migration itself are going to be, and if I click on this, you can see if I hit start, I've got the option here for a pre-stage and a full migration. There are our two main items. We will be doing a pre-stage and then we'll do a full migration over the top. But we also want to do the verify credentials first, and I can do that just by kicking that off with the OK. What that's going to do is it's going to go into the mailbox and check that it can access everything on both the source and the target tenant to say, is everything set up correctly in the project? Are the accounts correct? Can we perform this migration? It's a good check to do before you actually commit to starting a migration, just in case you do have any issues with the setup. So we're just going to let that do the verification and come back, and then we can kick off a pre-migration and then a full. So a little bit about pre-stage and then the full migration. The pre-stage is very handy if you want to have, as it says, pre-stage things ahead of time to make the cutover a lot easier. So if your mailbox maybe had, say, 20 gig of data in it, what we can do is we can do a pre-stage of everything up to the last 30 days and get that across maybe a week or two, maybe even 3 weeks ahead, so that when we do the full migration, we're just copying over the last little block of data, like 30 days plus obviously the time difference between when you ran them. So it means that the cutover process, the full migration, is a lot quicker than trying to do a full migration in one go in one evening. So definitely you want to be doing the pre-stage first and then obviously the full migration afterwards. It just does the delta. It will then look at what it's already copied and not recopy it again. So it becomes quite a quick process. So definitely pre-stage and then do a full migration when you're ready to do the cutover for that mailbox. So after a bit of time and a refresh, you can see it says completed verification. That's excellent. That means we are good to go now with the migration effort. So I'm going to click on this guy, select it, and I'm going to start the pre-stage migration now. And you can see the options down the bottom talk about how many days previous we want to have the mail there. So we could say 90, 60, 30. You can put a custom date in if you want to. I'm going to put the standard 30 days ago and just hit start migration there. That is like a normal best practice that we would do is 30 days of mail that it wouldn't see until we do the full migration. But it gives us an opportunity to pre-stage everything else, and that is certainly good for our migration speed. So with that in mind, looking at the source mailbox, you can see here we have a message from 2022 and the others are fairly recent. So I'm expecting that this email will show up in the target, and then obviously when we do the full migration, it'll catch up and see the rest of it. So I just want to see what we're expecting to see in the target, just to make sure that our migration is successful here. So it looks like our pre-stage is completed, as you can see here. So I'm going to just bring up this other window, looking at the target environment, and you can see, yes, there is our item from 2022 that we were expecting. So it really means now that I'll just drop this down away again. We can start our full migration now. So we'll go ahead and hit the selection and go to full migration, in which case obviously we don't get the option for how many days behind, but we do have the option to start the migration automatically at a particular time. So if you wanted to say kick it off at a 10 p.m. or later as part of the scheduling, you can certainly do that just by turning that on. But I'm just going to hit start migration here and just get that full migration underway straight away here. So we'll come back when that's completed and have another look at that mailbox. And our full migration has completed. As you can see, let's bring up that other screen showing the target mailbox. And yes, indeed, it does have the current mail as well. So that means the full migration has been successful. So we can go ahead now, we can add some more people into the batch and do some more migrations, or if you're done with the migrations, it's also a good practice to go and clean out those application registrations. We don't really want those hanging around, so let's delete those in both the source and the tenant, and then we can close out the migration and consider it completed. But really, thank you for watching this. I hope that was useful when we're migrating group to group in terms of Microsoft 365, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you very much.